Okay, so I'm lying on the floor here. That's because my back is kind of hurting me. I injured my back a couple years back, so now and then it hurts me. Anyway, you're gonna see me blink a lot. That's because my eyes are burning. But I'm here to talk about this book, Domestic Detention, a book that talks about me leaving the Caribbean in search of my missing mom, whom I found living in captivity by her husband. She was paralyzed from below her waist and living in captivity by her husband, who did his best to convince us all that she died. That, but he did his best to just convince us that, okay, she's dead. Okay, anyway, this was a time before 2009. I cannot give a specific date. I'm sorry, but I cannot give a specific date. But it happened before 2009. So which means that hardly there was no Facebook, there was no WhatsApp. There was internet in its infancy. But most businesses had it, not really residents. But yeah. So before that, my mom left when I was about 10 or 11, and she got married when I was 14 or 15. Before that, she kept in touch with my sister and I, calling directly. Again, my eyes are burning, so calling directly. And she spoke with my sister and I and kept in touch with everyone, like once, twice per week she called. The moment she got married, everything stopped. I mean, my sister and I stopped receiving birthday cards. We stopped receiving Christmas cards. I mean, everything that my mom did came to a stop immediately. Okay? She no longer wrote us. She no longer called us. When we try to reach out to her, each time the number gets changed without her saying a word. Okay? You call her today. Today is Tuesday. If you try to call back at least Thursday, Friday, you're gonna hear, sorry, the number you called has been changed. And my mom said nothing. Okay, this happened a lot of times. I mean, countless times. Okay, that didn't work. Her husband now decided to move her out of New York City. And when I tell you to move her, I'm not speaking about moving her to places like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut. I'm speaking about places like Texas, where she was always surrounded by his family. And we and hers are thousands of miles away. Okay. She did the same thing when she got there. Still tried to keep in touch with us, call us and write us. The numbers get changed again. Then he moved her from place to place, from address to here, there. And then all of a sudden she just disappeared. So when she disappeared, I took it upon myself to write 2 or 3 letters, send them to her last known address, but they all came back and were stamped return to sender. Okay, well, she disappeared now for about 5 years, so now I'm out of high school. So when I got out of high school, I decided, okay, I'm gonna leave the Caribbean and come and look for her. Uh my first again, my eyes are burning. So my first plan was to contact the FBI, and on a hunch, instead of contacting the FBI, I decided to call her last known number that she had here in New York. When I called that number, it says, sorry, the number you called has been changed to this number. I called this number. This number said the number has been changed to that number. So I continued doing this until I probably dialed about 12 numbers until a lady answered. The lady told me that my mom was very, very ill. So I panicked because I'm thinking, well, maybe she has cancer and was on her, final stages. Okay, so a date was planned for me to meet my mom. In a state that I cannot mention. I'm sorry, but I can't mention the state. So I went and I saw her. And when the husband picked me up from the airport, the first thing he did, he made sure that I wasn't accompanied by anyone. He stayed in the crowd. After a while that he see that I was alone, he emerged from the pack, introduced himself, took me home. As we pulled up to that house, the first thing I noticed was that it was the same house where the mails came from. So I was like, this is strange. If my mother's moved, why is she living here? All right. Got there, exited the car, left him behind. When I looked back, he was seated in the driver's seat, slumped with his head on the steering. I said, something just isn't right here. Okay, I proceeded on towards the house. When I got to the house, before I opened the door, I looked back one more time and then he disappeared. I said, okay. I entered the house. When I got inside of the house was pretty dark. I mean, the curtains were still, they weren't drawn. There was no sunlight, and the vacuum, the carpet needed a vacuum because they had a 4-year-old sister. A lot of things were tossed about, and mind the house was just disorganized. It was like in disarray. And I'm saying to myself, this is not my mother, something is wrong. Then I started hearing Patson Swan, pounding. So I got to the kitchen, and there I got the shock of my life. I stood there, I froze. There I saw my mother. There I saw my mom, seated in a wheelchair, on the brink of death, looking like 3 decades older, on the brink of death, shaking constantly from her torso, constantly shake like if she had Parkinson's disease, but below her waist was completely motionless, stiff, couldn't move, completely paralyzed. I fainted and hit the floor. But before I hit the floor, she reached for me, trembling, reached for me. Isn't it just her mother's instinct? But the wheelchair tilted, but my 4-year-old sister managed to hold it to softly hit the floor. And to see my mom crawl, jog towards me, and hug me, then burst out a loud scream is something that I can never forget. Okay? So we're now there. About 10-15 minutes after her husband came and I asked, what happened? Oh, he just said, oh, you're just a kid. You didn't know what happened. I don't want to talk to you. I mean, the devil is inside of me now, but I had to contain myself. All right, nothing could be done. The following day, I called the cops. Get them involved, told them exactly what was happening. And they say, well, the only thing that they can do, they can help, but my mom needs to talk. Well, she ran them. She chased the cops. She said that she wasn't sure if they were real cops. They could be ordinary citizens just up like police officers, and that they could be his friends. So she wasn't sure. That is called Stockholm Syndrome, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it's called. Anyway, nothing was done. I stayed a week there, and during that time, I stayed at a hotel actually, because I slept at the hotel at night, and in the day I visit my mom. For the week I stayed there, what I got to notice inside of a room was I found mails that my mom typed and gave him to send to us that he never mailed, and mails that we sent from her last previous addresses that she never received because many of them were unopened. But in the meantime, he's telling her that we're not looking for her, we don't care about her, no one cares about her. In the meantime, there she was, surrounded by his family, and telling her that we don't care about her. Okay, so I got back to New York 1 week later, which was a Wednesday or Thursday night. What he did during that time now, following Monday night, he took my mom and sent it to my aunt in Toronto. So from that state in the US, far away from here, thousands of miles away, he now shipped her. He now put her on a plane and sent it to New York City because he no longer needs her. She's paralyzed and he has been found, which is a narcissist. But what I believe is that he was keeping my mom alive just to collect insurance money because she was on the brink of death. And like I was completely convinced that it had something to do with insurance money. Anyway, we were happy that we found her. And I just figured it was now time for me to return to St. Vincent. But then my mom wanted me to stay. So which means now I had to get an immigration attorney. Well, someone introduced me to this guy whose first name is Derek. I cannot call his last name. I mean, I can, but I don't want to call it. Who's from Guyana. Derek, from Guyana, who had an office on Church Avenue. This guy started, but he never finished. He took every cent that I had. Never completed the job. But you know what? He did the same thing to a lot of people, but they got the cops, they got the authorities involved, and his license was revoked, and he was arrested. I have everything documented, which I keep as a trophy. It's called Karma. But anyway, everything is inside of the book. The book gives a clear insight of everything. I'm a screenwriter. I'm also, I'm a writer. I was trained as a writer. So I'm much better as a writer than I am of a talker. So you can get this book, Domestic Detention, 230 pages. Yes, it's a good sized book. And once again, it talks about me leaving the Caribbean in search of my missing mom, whom I found paralyzed and living in captivity. So check it out. You can purchase it on Amazon and anywhere books are sold. But I'm not sure, you wouldn't be able to walk in on every bookshelf and pick it up. Some, I cannot say exactly. I don't know which ones at the moment. But you can order it from Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, anywhere books are sold. All right. So once again, domestic detention that speaks about me leaving the Caribbean in search of my missing mom, whom I found living in captivity, paralyzed, and living in captivity by her husband, who did his best to convince us all that she was dead. All right, so check it out. Thanks.